Welcome back, everyone. This is the Michael Joseph Show. I have two gentlemen, impossibly handsome gentlemen, in the studio. Mark and Branden from Rainforest Rescue. And gentlemen, welcome. Hello.
Hello.
You're on.
The
red light is on.
Right on. Red light.
This has attracted a lot of attention, actually. I've been posting it online about you guys. And just to give you some context for our listeners, we kind of connected after a post that I'd put on the Cow Bay community about buybacks and stuff like that. And of course, we don't need to mention names or anything like that. And that started a conversation. Most of it, because I blocked comments, was offline. It seemed a lot of the heat was out of it because I didn't do the settings right, which is typical me, and I allowed people to add their own options. So it was just a yes or no option with lots of emoticons. I'm trying to make it light and fluffy. And someone wrote, I just want milk that tastes like real milk, which was my favorite response, which was fantastic. But there was this avalanche of emails and phone calls from people that have lots of opinions about not just buybacks, but how environmental groups have worked in the past and present. And what I could tell from both sides was that there was lots of misunderstandings. And I think why I wanted to do this interview, because I invited you guys. I wanted to talk to you. And I'm going to be learning with the listeners why it's important to have people come in like yourself to clarify your position. So we should start with the Rainforest Rescue. How was the nachos, by the way? You're not supposed to be eating.
I'm not eating.
They've got their hands on the lap. I didn't eat it. So let's start with the awkward stuff, which is the misconceptions. What have you found have been the misconceptions? And I might be able to add some stuff as well, because I've heard quite a bit, actually.
Sure. You want me to go first?
Go for it.
All right. So misconceptions. Rainforest Rescue wants to depopulate the Daintree. Not true.
Far out.
You don't?
No,
Okay.
no. We actually quite like the people that we work with and live with.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we love the Daintree. It's been a community in place for hundreds of years. Well, over 100 years, right? It started a long time ago, and it's established itself. And it's a beautiful place. I think one of the things that came very clear through the storm, the cyclone, then storm, was how people care for each other north of the river.
It's pretty amazing. Like, they are a phenomenal community.
It's beautiful.
And don't forget, we've got to mention, I know you said in the last 100 years, it's the community as we know it now, but of course we had our Indigenous well before that as well. And there is a call to return to country, which I love. I don't know much about maybe you guys can unpack that. I'll ask you about that in a moment. But yes, the depopulation thing, not true.
Not true.
Not true. Tick that off. Okay, great. Mark said something quite beautiful, because we had a conversation which I found quite enlightening, where you said that the community is an integral part of the environment. And what I loved was when you said that the Daintree doesn't need, in inverted commas, saving. So can you unpack that, what you meant by that?
Yeah. And again, I imagine that's a hot one. So look, I think the word saving is pretty binary. It's quite a divisive word. I think we are beyond that as a community. I think that there's probably a more modern conversation to have, and that's probably more around the idea of stewardship rather than saving. You know, we've got to, as you said, there's a great community there who are integral to the region, and there are a lot of different parts of that community as well. So stewardship seems a far more relevant conversation to be having.
And what do you mean by stewardship? Because I'm not posh.
Sure. No, that's okay. I mean, it's handy. It's another S word, right? So
Branden's just fixing his microphone.
So look, stewardship, the idea of that is considering the use of the land. The land is there in many different ways. We've got the lowlands, we've got the highlands, and then the areas in between. There's the waterways, and there's the ocean as well. And so it's considering the use of that. So some of that is protected. A lot of that is the uplands, but then a lot of the lowland areas is either unprotected or perhaps even being used for agriculture, residential, communities, and it's considering are these uses, going to be sustainable going forwards, especially with things like what happened earlier in the year, with awful natural disasters taking place and how they're going to affect us going forwards.
And I know that because when I lived there for almost 12 years, actually, we are all environmentalists. You wouldn't live there unless you weren't. And
it's
I know
too
that,
hard.
yeah, it's just too hard. It's actually really tough. I reckon I will end up back there, actually. I kind of got that vibe, maybe Thornton's Beach or something, or Cape Kimberley. I used to walk that beach a lot until I got followed by a crocodile, me and my dogs, actually.
That's quite a beach, Cape Kimberley.
Yeah, it's stunning.
Watch your back.
Yeah, watch everything. So, and your dogs. But I noticed that some residents said that they felt that there was some sort of someone had said that they were vandalising the Daintree, and I found that really distressing, and they got really upset by it. So. But I think what they said to me is that, but we're all environmentalists. Otherwise, why would you move to the Daintree, right? So has that been your experience with the community?
Generally, yeah. I mean, there are some folks, I wonder if they're there because they're literally hiding.
Yeah, well,
hiding out.
Well, that's the Douglas Shire.
Oh, yeah,
that's not just Daintree.
A lot of trees to hide behind.
It's effective. It's effective.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but no, the people up there are all people who appreciate what an incredible place. Why would you live there? It's not easy. I mean, bugs, heat, humidity,
snakes, cassowaries,
electricity, internet, all the things that people around the world are now taking for granted are hard to come by up there.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, so but people make it work.
They do make it work. And I was just to close the book on that. So replacing the saving the rainforest. Yeah. With what do you think the discussion should be? I know that you touched on the different layers of the rainforest, like the lowlands and the reef. So could you expand on that a little bit, Mark?
Sure. It's taking that conversation to the future. What Rainforest Rescue has been going for 25 years. What does the next 25 years look like? What does the next couple of 100,000 or whatever it might be years look like for the region? But with that taken into consideration, there are people living there, there are animals, there are tourists coming in, there are businesses being run, and there is also, at a global level as well, we've got several crises happening. We've got a biodiversity crisis happening. We've got a climate crisis happening as well. What's going to happen with those? Yeah. And how do they all sort of mesh and fit together?
Yeah.
And one of the things that's been so wonderful about working in the Daintree while I've been on the job up here has been working with local Aboriginal corporation Jabalbina and really developing a positive working relationship and some really good friendships and learning about this incredibly old culture and how the Sayapal Agreement has brought back, this land under the stewardship of the traditional custodians and what that means.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that we did was to train Indigenous rangers in horticulture.
Yeah.
And we had refurbished our old nursery, which is just north of us in D1, our new nursery's in Cow Bay. And we did it so that we could give this facility to the Eastern Gugu-Yalanji so that they could do their own propagation. And if it's bush tucker, great. If it's culturally relevant plants, great. If they want to do it for restoration, healing country, great.
Yeah.
And it's been really amazing to watch the evolution of that organization just over the last 6 years since I've been.
Is that Jabalbina?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I want to talk about that actually because I wanted to close the book on the buyback thing.
Oh, back to the buyback.
Well, I just want to get it over and done with because, but I should have to have full disclosure. I remember celebrating when an environmental group bought the properties each side of me and behind me and going, yay. And two of the properties, absolutely, I could see why they bought them. We had some humongous old growth trees plus a gully. So it would have been extremely difficult to build on it. You'd actually have to build a bridge to get to the beach. So I got my brain around that. And then I remember looking at the other piece of land that had obviously been felled and regrown. And I remember regretting the celebration because I didn't really think it through that third property that was kind of flat, it hadn't got anything of significance on it. I remember sort of thinking, God, that's actually a family that kind of missed out on that. So, Mark, you talked about indiscriminate buybacks, which is not Well, just talk about the difference between what you're doing when it comes to buyback, so we can close the book on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think whatever the opposite to indiscriminate is, very considered, I guess, strategic.
Yes. Yeah, that's perfect.
It is considering. And any of the properties that we purchased, and when I say property, that's not as in a house, it's as in an area of land, it is of high conservation value. So often that might be that it's connected or adjacent to the existing national parks.
Sure.
It might be that it's the means in which we could create a wildlife corridor so that areas between the national park areas are connected up, you know, and in doing so, what that allows nature to be able to do is keep genetic diversity high.
Yeah.
It allows populations of animals, cassowaries, tree kangaroos, whatever it might be, to move through those areas as well, and it allows nature to have that connection that it is essential to it being able to flourish.
And it's important that you know, because I read a response to an email that one of the residents wrote, I think it was in 2022, where you said you don't buy land with houses on it. You're not trying to, because it sort of contradicts.
Completely.
We did, just to be fair, we did buy one property with a house on it. The owners asked us to do it, and we wound up, it doubled the size of a wildlife corridor that we had in one fell swoop. It was an 18-hectare property.
Oh, okay, sure.
And, it's a longer story, but we basically created a life lease for the remaining partner to continue to live there throughout their days. And ultimately, we're going to use the house as a place for research and volunteers.
Perfect. I think a lot of people most of the people in Daintree are going to get that. They can get their brain around it, and I think I wrote that in my post. So, no, they're not trying to depopulate, and they're not trying to buy a house.
No, and look, we don't have a tremendous amount of money. It's not like we're buying up 10, 20, 30 properties a year.
Yeah.
When we buy a property, it's because it's got high conservation values. We do a very clear assessment on the conservation values of that property, and then we go out and fundraise for it. But, we check with multiple people, including the Department of Environment and Science, to make sure that we're doing the best thing for the Daintree and therefore keeping our promise to our supporters.
Yeah, for sure. I understand. All right, a bit of Stevie Wonder coming up. We're going to talk more about, but it was after the from Branden, more about what Rainforest Rescue are up to, and I want to hear about the nursery too, because that sounds amazing. Welcome back. It's the Michael Choser Show. I'm here with Mark and Branden, who are eating all my corn chips. How dare you? I'm kidding. I told them to because I'm a little chubby. So we're not quite done. You brought up a really good point, and I was going to actually bring it up and I got some emails from the Daintree residents going, but if you buy land and there's nowhere to live in the school, because someone told me that there used to be 90 kids at that school.
Wow.
Then it sat at 45 for years. It was when I was living there, and now it's down to, I think, 16, 17. So what... I'm curious what your response is to that with the whole housing crisis, which is everywhere, especially north of the river.
Sure. Branden?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Mark.
Look at that.
Mark said, you can have that. You can have that. Yeah. Go, Branden.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question for a lot of reasons. First of all, there are blocks of land that are available for development that aren't connected to protected areas, that are not intact habitat, rainforests, that are covered with weeds, whatever. Please, clear that. Bring your family. Terrific. Yeah. We're not interested in that because that is not supporting nature, right? Mm-hmm. Our whole thing is about protecting rainforest. Mm-hmm. And yet, the properties that we purchase are properties that, we bought a property a couple years ago. I was like, God, this is steep. Sure, some people like steep driveways.
Yeah, I had one.
Yeah, right.
You needed a four-wheel drive to get up. You do a running...
Part of the adventure. So that's great. And there are properties, that are beautiful, and sure, you could fit a house in there, but these properties have been owned for, 50 years, whatever, and nobody has built anything on it. And then they sold it to us saying, hey, we'd like you to continue to just protect this.
Sure.
But when you look at what's available north of the river, there are those blocks, say in Cow Bay, there are places that you could build that are absolutely perfect for development that aren't what we would want to protect, because cassowaries don't want to have them, tree kangaroos don't want to have them, you'll never find a spotted-tailed quail there.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is what's the deal with all the Airbnbs north of the river?
Yeah, that is a problem.
I think there are over 400 houses north of the river.
Yep.
And I have been told, so I don't have I don't know the real numbers, but a pretty consistent number that comes back to me is 25% of the homes north of the river are short-term rentals. Yeah. And, I've got friends. I live in Cow Bay.
Yeah.
Right? So I actually live north of the river. And I've got friends who make their living supporting the Airbnbs by cleaning them and take care of them and managing them. Yeah. So, yes, that's good for the economy, but it's keeping people from moving in and bringing their families and, bringing more kids into the school.
And it's hard because the demographic, it is getting older, I guess. And it's hard because we can't tell someone what to do with their property. I mean, when you move to the Daintree, it's all about freedom and, you know what I mean? So you can't say, but you can't do that. It's a lifestyle. Yeah. So that's going to be a tough one that all councils and communities are really dealing with. So I think that's actually a really, really good point. So
and I don't have an answer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're really helpful. So no, I'm kidding. But that's okay. So you don't want to go into land that's really good for housing. It's all about land that, if I've got this correctly, because I'm learning as I go, that's preferably connected to existing rainforest, which I think most people can understand.
Well, it has to be. It's literally about intact habitat, and it's about creating and expanding corridors for wildlife.
Yeah, perfect.
Period. And we have 5 wildlife corridors.
I have, if you could indulge me for a moment, because one of our planning girls...
That's why we're here.
Yeah, I know, because I'm learning, because I don't know enough about it, even though I lived there for 12 years, and I got 2 Daintree ulcer scars. Like, it was really hardcore. Yeah, I made a list twice. Respect. So I've got one in the back of my arm, one I had cut out in the back of my leg. But one thing that I didn't even think of was that in some way residential can be good, especially along the roads, because when you look at roadkill on Forest Creek Road, it was always not in front of residential land. It was it was in front of land that hadn't been developed. So in some regards, and I don't know, you don't have to agree with this, but it didn't even occur to me until someone in council, a planner, said that, it's all good and well to do these corridors, but if you draw the animals to the street, that can be a real problem. Have you guys thought about that or heard about what do you say about that? Because I thought that was super interesting, right?
Sure. I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder, Mark. Do you want to say something about that?
Oh, yeah. Look,
I mean, because this is kind of conjecture at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can totally see where that's coming from, and I think there is a quite a vivid picture there, right, of a cassowary wandering out into the road.
Well, they would have forest. Yeah. We had 2 on our property, so
I think what that does more than anything is show us that this is a region, a mixed region, in the sense that there are a lot of different things trying to live alongside each other.
And it goes back to stewardship.
Yeah.
Right? If people are going to live in the Daintree, which is great, people live in the Daintree, people will continue to live in the Daintree. I lived in the Daintree, you lived in the Daintree, you're coming back to the Daintree.
I'm coming back, I'm going to die there, yeah.
But it's hopefully in a long
it's going to be long. Well, my aunt was 106 in Texas.
Wow, that's
106, so I'm not even, I'm 52, I'm just about halfway through my life.
You live to 125 here. Yes. But really, it comes down to, and it's something I think about a lot, you've got this, like, I think of the Daintree as a cathedral of nature, right? It's an incredible place. Australia's largest rainforest, Australia's most biodiverse rainforest, the oldest continually evolving and surviving rainforest on the planet by many millions of years. The Amazon, 65 million?
Yeah, whatever.
The Daintree up to 100
million.
Yeah,
thank you.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
So it's a very special place. And we're trying to create safe places for wildlife to continue to exist. There's not much we can do about people speeding. There's not much we can do about people not paying attention to wildlife on the roads. Yeah. And, often I've heard, the locals go too fast. I've seen locals go too fast. I'm not allowed to go fast. We actually at Rainforest Rescue...
Well, guilty as charged. I went on my motorbike, but that's a risk you take.
Right. Well, at Rainforest Rescue, if you hit a cassowary, you automatically resign. So
you die. Yeah.
You sacrifice. You fall on your sword.
So no one wants to. This is the thing.
Absolutely. So you have to be careful. Yeah. Right? And that's where I'm at, and that's what Mark's talking about with stewardship. It's about recognizing that we choose to live in this amazing special place, and when you talk about the economics and the fact that the Daintree is such a tourism focus, good. Yeah. But it should be well managed. Yeah. It should be something that comes with an instruction manual.
Yeah. Sure.
In the United States, not to I left. Yeah. But in the U.S., Yosemite National Park. Yeah. It became so popular that they had to regulate traffic and the number of people that could come through. Yeah. And I don't know what the carrying capacity of the Daintree is when it comes to when is it unsafe for wildlife.
I think it's more robust than you think actually?
Well, I don't have an opinion.
Yeah. Well, no, I do. I do because I live there and I saw.
It's more robust than you think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like look, there is roadkill and local. No one north of the river, and no one wants to run over an animal. No. There's no doubt
ever.
But I think its capacity and its resilience is much stronger than it's given credit for. Like, it's just, I mean, everyone that lives up there, you spend your weekends pushing back the rainforest because it's like, what the hell? I've got a question from one of our listeners, and I thought it was really cool. Sure. This is from Simon. Question for Rainforest Rescue. With the global CO2 emissions pledges from major corporations, you guys talked about the planet pointing. Because of the demise of the sugarcane industry here in the Douglas Shire, in your opinion, would it be viable to get sugarcane properties north of Wonga Beach, perhaps as a start, sponsored by major players as carbon sinks? You're going to need to explain that, what it means, to potentially give farmers another income stream. Never heard of it.
Right.
What do you know, Branden?
So Simon, awesome Simon from up north. The question is about whether or not it's a viable option. Yeah, of course it's a viable option. I mean, you're seeing the restoration economy emerge, right?
What's a carbon sink? Just talk about that.
Carbon sink. It's like it's a kitchen sink. A carbon sink.
I think you're lying there, Branden. Lies.
Right, so we all know that the planet is burning, and the problem is greenhouse gas emissions. The most voluminous, the one that's the most prevalent would be carbon, right? So it's CO2 in the atmosphere that's caused the planet to warm, and it's getting worse. So you can reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere by pulling it out of the atmosphere and fixing it. And a carbon sink is basically how you pull carbon out of the atmosphere and keep it out of the atmosphere. And a forest is a perfect example of a carbon sink.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so that's a possibility. So would sugarcane act as a carbon sink anyway? It is a plant.
It's pretty ephemeral.
To some extent.
I mean, you grow it, you sequester the carbon, and then you break it into tiny pieces and release all of the carbon again.
Okay, so what you're talking about is, and what Simon, our listeners, is asking is about more forestation or something more permanent.
Yes, and it's very interesting. I mean, one of the things that we're looking at Rainforest Rescue, and we've actually shifted, well, we didn't shift, we increased our focus so that whereas we used to be the guys that would, purchase and protect, high conservation value rainforest, we're now the guys that are propagating rainforest trees in the Daintree and then restoring, old land that's been degraded, that's connected to rainforest to increase habitat and make the Daintree one of the world's only rainforests that's growing, not shrinking.
Yeah, for sure. And that's actually a really good point, because one of the feedbacks I got was that why would the Daintree need a nursery?
Yeah, right.
When the Daintree is one of the world's biggest nurseries, and so I've understood it, you're not trying to plant things in the rainforest, you're trying to reforest bare stripped land that's not inhabitable and acts as a corridor. Is that right, Mark?
Degraded, denuded land that's of low value. Land, for example, along what they call the riparian zone, which is along rivers.
Yeah.
So, the Daintree River is a perfect example of that, where land is right up to the edge of the Daintree River is bare.
Yeah, I know. And that's really funny, because there's a guy, Sadhguru, in India who I follow, who's amazing, who did 1 billion trees on the motorbike. I know. He planted 1 billion trees. It's like the biggest move all by himself. He's
amazing.
Dead. No, but he did it. I'm going to play a bit of Bobby McFerrin, and we'll talk more about what Rainforest Rescue is with the nursery. We'll get back to that. Welcome back. It's the Michael Joseph Show, and a big thank you to Simon for your amazing question. And I want to do a big shout out for Simon to Beck and her mum Carolyn and her friend Janet, who are staying with them in the Daintree. And Simon, we'd love to hear your weather. I just want to circle back, Branden, before we go to Mark, to Simon's original question about the carbon. What was that word? Carbon, not footprint.
Bathtub.
I'm sorry, the what?
The carbon sink.
The carbon
jacuzzi
sink, which is not like a plug sink dishes. Just talk a little bit more about that and how practically you're doing that, you're addressing that with Rainforest Rescue.
You bet. So a few years ago, we decided as an organization that we wanted to do more to contribute to addressing the climate crisis. And hey, we can do the biodiversity crisis at the same time because we need more habitat. And it's all about the carbon sink. And trees are one of the most effective tools we have to draw carbon from the atmosphere and fix it. This is the UN's Decade of Restoration. The federal government in Australia just passed the Nature Repair Bill, and there's going to be a nature repair market with nature credits that are basically biodiversity credits, similar to carbon credits. They're money. And you can earn money by doing restoration and restoring habitat. The state government here in Queensland does what's known as the Land Restoration Fund. The Land Restoration Fund provides money for restoration work, and you can accrue both carbon credits and increase the amount of money that you earn by hitting certain targets or including certain elements. So it's one thing to plant 1,100 trees in a hectare. That'll score you some carbon credits. But if it's going to help restore riparian areas to improve water quality onto the reef, that makes it more valuable. If it's working with community, that's more valuable.
Yeah, great.
If it's working with indigenous peoples, that's more valuable.
Beautiful.
So those are all.
So it forces you, even though you're going to do that anyway, it actually compels people to consider the community, consider the indigenous, and bring them into the conversation, which is massively important.
Yep.
So gone are the days of it's all about the trees, forget about the community, forget about the indigenous.
No, it's a full package.
It's a full package.
It's a full package.
And now there's a financial incentive as well to that, which is important.
Which is fantastic because you can go wholesale, just as Simon was suggesting with his question, that, all of that land could turn into carbon sink land for big corporations who just want to plant trees and say, hey, look, we're reducing our carbon footprint by replacing, carbon or these trees and, but there are many different ways of looking at it, and you've got these different credit schemes that exist. So like I mentioned, the nature credits are coming. Like right now, the great viable one is carbon credits, but nature credits are coming. Wet Tropics Management Authority with Terrain, Wetma, Terrain has created cassowary credits that are about to be trialed, which is a biodiversity credit, and it's all about doing nature positive activities like restoring rainforest.
And I think there is a really important point to make there around biodiversity. So this isn't around tree plantation. So, a single species of eucalypt, for example, and just rows upon rows of those.
Which is great for carbon, but it does nothing for habitat.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. But this is a really good point. Go,
So this is more around a mix. So, imagine almost like a selection box of tree species, of plants, of animals. So in a sense, the more biodiverse it gets, the better it is.
And we'll do more than 1,100 trees. Yeah. Like that would give us the carbon money, but that's not why we're into it. That's an added benefit, and that's something that will attract, say, farmers who want to transition a portion of their land, or there's 10% of their land that's just not productive and drives them crazy. It's a great way to make some money.
Sure.
But we will add an additional 2,400 trees on that, and it will be a biodiverse mix of trees for a total of, we go between 3,000 and 4,000 trees per hectare, depending on the context.
Wow. Yeah. And that's more reflective of nature. Instead of having, it's not often you see rows of the same. And I can imagine the tree kangaroos going, okay, wow, what's going on here? So you want the diversity there. Yeah. So I get it. And Mark, you brought up a really good point in our conversation about regenerative tourism. I'd love to hear more about that, what that means for you and the community.
Of course. So the idea of regenerative tourism is people coming into an area as tourists and in some way, shape or form being able to give back to the area. So, and in that sense, that might be they're doing a beach cleanup, or they might be planting trees or something similar to that. Now, regenerative tourism has been identified as a global trend, trending up.
That's true.
More and more people are doing
Tourism and Events Queensland identified that, as has TTNQ and TTPD. These are all tourism bodies, So.
And so what that then means is, if you think about a region like up here in the wonderful Shire we're in, we've got the opportunity to go, okay, tourists coming in, what do you want to give back? Potentially you're planting trees, potentially you're helping to manage some land, for example, and what that also does is not only provide an economic opportunity for the community in the area, but also a means to allow those tourists to have a deeper connection with the area. There's a potential they may come back more than once as a result.
Yeah, and it does sort of speak to that point that the rainforest, it needs stewardship. It does need people. It's an integral part of the biodiversity, which hasn't been the conversation in years past. No. It's about community bad, people bad, get them out. But what you're talking about is get them in and be a part of the solution.
Yeah, I think there's been a bit of a kind of glass jar approach. Just shove a jar over the top of the rainforest and just leave. We're not allowed near it.
Yeah.
I don't think that really works. So,
no.
So, Branden?
I don't think that's possible. And I think if we tried to take a glass jar approach, we'd get into serious trouble. And it's not where we're at anyway.
I know. But there have been people, as you know, that have been that. Yeah. And
that's not us.
I know. That's why I wanted you on the show, to make that clear. And that's why. But anyway, so the getting tourists involved, the locals involved. Can you speak a little bit more about local employment or just maybe touch a bit more on the nursery?
Sure.
Because that sounds amazing.
Look, the nursery, as it stands right now, could be one of the biggest employers in the region. We've got a number of local community residents working at the nursery. Nursery's up in Cow Bay, as Branden mentioned. And as we're growing the capacity of the nursery, we're heading towards 150,000 trees grown there in a year, per year, and we're going to need more people to work there. Now, what's interesting is when you consider that there was a report published that identified up to 50,000 hectares of land that could be either regenerated, reforested across the wet tropics region. That's a lot to do.
That's a lot of tube stock.
It is. We're not going to be able to do that all by ourselves. So there's just those raw numbers alone. You go, well, there's an opportunity there. There's an economic and an employment opportunity for the region.
Yeah.
To consider taking that challenge on.
Yeah. Wow. That's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
We did this nursery because we wanted to address the climate and biodiversity crises and at the same time connect with community, provide jobs, work with the agricultural community as they are looking for transition opportunities.
Yes. And because people need jobs out there.
They're like, what do we do with this now? Sugarcane's too hard to haul to Gordonvale, but there are so many other ways to use land, and there are so many new emergent ways to make it profitable. If it's, carbon or biodiversity credits, great. If it's agroforestry, if it's mixed farming, if it's regenerative agriculture, there are so many new ways to approach it that are nature positive. And those nature positive ways of doing agriculture are going to accrue nature positive credits.
Yeah.
And it's going to get to the point where, and it's already starting to happen, if companies aren't taking their own carbon footprint seriously, they're going to find that the interest rates that they're offered for the loans that they need to survive are a little bit higher than the people who are actually taking care of their carbon footprint, because Australia's got some pretty tough goals to hit.
Yeah, okay.
And time is running out. Yep. And it's not, you can't make more time, and it's getting hotter. Everybody's noticing it.
Yeah.
And this is how we are attempting to do something about it. And one of the things that we think as Rainforest Rescue we can do is help inspire other groups, other people, other places to do the same thing. Like we just built a nursery out of thin air, and now we're making hundreds of thousands of trees, and it's amazing.
Yeah, imagine imagine if the Daintree then becomes almost like a standard across Australia or across the Pacific or wherever it is as to how to approach this.
Wow, dude, that's so Daintree.
It is actually. Well,
I love it.
It had a heyday, and we want it to come back, but we want it to be at the forefront, I guess. And you guys, it seems, wanted to be at the forefront of this new movement, which embraces and draws the community in and be a part of it, but also bringing the Indigenous back, return to country, so that they can be part of it too. So that's really interesting. Jabbal has got a new project happening up in Cape Kimberley. We're just gonna break for our sponsors, a bit of a song, Rivers of Babylon, and then we'll finish up with anything you guys want.
Great.
Oh, actually, I should really probably line it up. There it is. Welcome back, guys. That was Boney M. I used to play this. I was telling the boys that my mother, after a few red wines, would get me to put the cartridge in and we'd play it full blast. We had JBL speakers. We're very posh. So, gentlemen, we know all about what you do, who you are, and who you're not, basically. I'm loving your shirts, by the way. you have an ambassador that just won an award, and we're just taking a photo. You had tell me about your ambassador, because there's a new award, how you can help the community directly and how the community can get involved. Let's do that.
Sure. Do you want me to talk about
Gives good shout out?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Look, the 20th Cassowary Awards are happening this Friday.
What are they?
So that's the Wet Tropics Cassowary Awards. So it provides awards to people who've been recognised within the community as providing some kind of contribution to the environment, our Wet Tropics area. And we are super proud to have discovered that our junior ambassador, Daisy, is nominated for the Young Cassowary Award.
Oh, so, Daisy.
She's 10 and she's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, we love Daisy. So what did Daisy do to be nominated? That's pretty spectacular.
Well, I can tell you that she is. That's very.
The boys look very proud.
Yeah. She is so excited to be an ambassador. She shows up to every event. She wants to do all the merchandise. When we had our tree planting last year, and everybody needs to come out to the community tree plantings, do them every year in May.
Great. And where do they find out about that?
Go to rainforestrescue.org.au.
Okay.
So you can find out all about it.
Great.
Rainforestrescue.org.au. Anyway, Daisy's amazing, and sometimes when I'm talking to her, I think she's 20, and
wow,
and then
old soul,
and then she's still 10. Okay, anyway, she's wonderful, and she works very hard to support Rainforest Rescue and our efforts to protect the rainforest.
Well, thank you, Daisy. You just sound absolutely wonderful and a good advocate, so that's great. And you were talking, we saw a post today on the Douglas Shire page. Someone was asking me about if council could provide plants. It's like that. Everyone asks me everything. It's okay.
You're a councillor, man.
I know. I'm not complaining, but I caught myself putting my gloves on going, no, I don't need to be doing plants. But can people reach out to you? Just talk to me about that.
Yes, of course, people can reach out to us. I would like it if people would reach out to us. And if people want trees, we're actually putting together right now, we want to offer trees to residents north of the Daintree River, so that if they want to put a few trees in their yard, whatever, people often ask us, hey, could I get some trees? And I'm like, how many do you need? And they're like, 5. So I'm like, okay, because we do thousands of trees.
Yeah, you're used to big numbers. Right. Yeah, got it.
So we are actually putting together an offering. We just want to give locals trees.
Sure.
So we're just going to figure out what we can do every year. In addition, of course, the council gives away 6 trees if you bring your rates notice in.
You got it. And, maybe you could do instead of people just randomly coming in, that you do a day, like a tree day. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great.
That's an easy way to, trust me. That's how you do it.
One day.
Yeah, just twice a year or whatever. And I don't know.
Yeah, but there are so many ways that folks can get involved. I mean, we have volunteers in the nursery. Yeah. God, we didn't even talk about our land management team.
Go on.
Great. Okay, so our land management team is fantastic. So you got the crew at the nursery making trees, and then you got the crew out on the ground planting trees and making rainforest.
Wow.
And I mean, these guys, they're getting so good. They can do 1,000 trees a day. We're talking like 3 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you guys have? Because I've got a drill with an auger.
Oh, no. We've got the Star Trek version of that.
Have you? I was so impressed with my auger.
Those things hurt. No, you get a hydro auger. It's basically a gurney, right? Like a power washer with a special head on it. And it makes the most beautiful holes in the earth. It's like mousse that just welcomes the plants.
Are you kidding? Well, I'll come and do that. And we'll get a video because no one will believe me.
Oh, it's so easy. You don't even need to really do... Ari hurt his back the other day. He was planting by dropping a tree down into the hole and then pressing it in with his feet. It's that easy.
So that's how you can get 3 people to do 1,000 a day. All right, that's great. I was going to say with my auger, it's like, and I need shoulder surgery.
No, those things hurt.
Yeah, they do. Okay. Gentlemen... This has been very enlightening. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's great being here.
Yeah, it was really, really fantastic,
and
actually.
not just for the corn chips.
No, the corn chips.
No, they should not be eating. Who brought those? And the nachos, food of my people. I've had a fantastic time, guys. I'm going to go. I'll see you either next week or the week after. I haven't quite figured that out. Mark and Branden from Rainforest Rescue, thank you so much. As I said to the listeners, we're going to put this on Podbean, so you'll be able to re-listen to this. And I want your shirt, Plan a Rainforest. I love that.
Sure.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. And we're going to finish up with Mystified by Inks. in excess.
All veils and misty.